So, judging by your arrival, Steve ran over 5 minutes in his keynote, and well, I think we should let him. From smart felling devices to people who are hurting seals, but then in another way. I'd like to give the word to Tom, who's here to present on his research together with his fellow students who are on the slide deck here on third-party security seals.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, so I'm Tom, and this presentation will be about clubbing seals. No need to worry, you won't harm actual animals, but I can't say the same about security seals. So first a bit about me. So I'm Tom. I'm a PhD student at the University of Leuven, which is located in Belgium. In my PhD, I mainly focus on web security, mainly in a large scale, and I also look at privacy threats on the web. I tend to call myself a security researcher as well. For instance, a bit more than a year ago, I was here talking about a vulnerability that I discovered in WordPress. And yeah, you can also find me on Twitter. So let's start. Well, let's meet Alice. So Alice is your average web user, but recently Alice has heard about all these awful security attacks, like Heartbleeds, shell shock, you name it. So Alice has become a bit more security conscious. Now, when Alice wants to buy a new dress, she goes to a web shop because, well, she's of the 21st century. But, well, when she selected the dress of her liking, she will need to enter her credentials. This could be credit card credentials, the place where she lives, her email, password, several kinds of features that she has to enter. But of course, she doesn't know whether she should trust the web shop with her credentials. So this is where the security seal providers come into play. So these seal providers employ a vulnerability scanner, which will scan for vulnerabilities in the web shop and report back the findings to the security seal provider. And when the web shop is found to be without vulnerabilities, they can include a security seal, which is basically an image hosted by the security seal provider, and the image is also clickable and says that the security of the website is okay. So now when Alice goes to the web shop and wonders whether the security is okay, she can actually look at the image there and notice that the security of that website has been checked, and she can, without any troubles, enter her credentials there. So, for further, to further investigate, she can even click on the image, which will refer to the website of the trusted seal provider, company name which she probably knows, which will state in a bit more detail which vulnerabilities were checked for, and that the web shop managed to pass all the vulnerability scans. So in this talk, I will first go over the different entities in this ecosystem, so the security seal providers and their customers. Next, I will look at the claims of these security seal providers, so whether websites containing a security seal are actually more or less secure. And in the last part of this presentation, I will look at some attacks that we discovered in our research, which actually makes websites with containing a security seal vulnerable to new types of attack vectors. But first, let's look at the security seal providers which we evaluated. So here you can see some security seals. You probably have seen this on some websites before. So these are seals of well-known companies such as McAfee, Norton, Qualys, and some others. And here you can see two quotes from two of these companies. So these companies say that they scan for vulnerabilities in dynamic web applications. So they check for things as SQL injection, and they verify these vulnerabilities are not present in order that the website is able to safeguard consumer data. Another one is saying that the badge, so the security seal, will only appear when the website has passed an intensive security scan. And these scans are performed in a way much like an attacker would. So if they are unable to find a vulnerability, then an attacker wouldn't find it either. So in our study, we evaluated 10 different seal providers. These ranged from large security companies, where the security seal was just one of their many products, to startups that just focus on providing these security seals. The cost of such a security seal also varies a lot. So it ranges from $84 a year to over $2,000 a year. And what they all have in common is that they all offer a vulnerability scan, which is obvious because otherwise you wouldn't be able to tell anything about the security of a website. But some of them offer some additional services. So half of them, so 5 seal providers, also offer a malware scan, where they basically crawl through your website, look for malware files, and if they do find it, they report it to you so you can remove it. Some other additional services are offered by few seal providers. For instance, some of them allow you to give them FTP access. That allows them to browse through all the files on your server side and check for malware there. And another service that's provided is that you can give them credentials to a login form. So that's needed when they want to evaluate the security of the authenticated parts of the website. But it should be noted that both of these features are optional, so you can obtain a security seal without providing these additional services. And then there are some other differences between the different seal providers. So some of them, so when a vulnerability is found, of course the security seal shouldn't still show, otherwise the seal provider is just lying, saying that this vulnerable site is not vulnerable. So what they do is they make the security seal invisible, and they do that by making it into a 1x1 pixel image or making it a transparent PNG. And some of them offer a certain grace period where you have time to fix the vulnerability before the seal disappears. And this ranges up to 7 days. And now let's look at the customers of these seal providers. So we looked for these security seal customers by crawling the topmost 1 million popular websites, according to Alexa. There we looked for the presence of these security seal images. So all these images are hosted by the seal providers. So it's very easy to detect if a certain website is using a certain security seal. We also looked for links as well. And as an additional way to find seal customers, because we might miss something by crawling, is to look for results by using Google snippets. So, for instance, using this snippet, it's possible to enumerate all the, or many of the customers of Scan Verify. So in total, we discovered more than 8,000 websites containing such a security seal. The majority of them come from the 1 million most popular websites, which isn't very surprising because well, these security seals come with a certain cost, and if your website doesn't get many visits, you don't benefit a lot from having these security seals present. And the most popular category among these security seal customers was found to be e-commerce, which is also not very surprising because these are the type of websites that try to convey to their users that they are secure, and therefore that may lead to an increase of sales. So now, in the second part, we will do this security evaluation of the seal providers. So we try to answer the question whether Alice should trust these seal providers. Maybe I'll ask you what you think. So who thinks that Alice should trust these seal providers? Okay. That was as expected. But of course, you don't really know it because you haven't performed any experiments. So you're just guessing that these are, well, that Alice shouldn't really trust them. But we did do the experiments. So we did 3 different types of experiments. So first we compared the presence of security indicators of sealed websites to non-sealed websites. And second experiment, we did a manual penetration test on websites that contained a security seal and were willing to cooperate. And third, we set up a vulnerable web shop and tried to acquire as many seals as possible. So in our first experiment, we made the assumption that sealed websites are interested in their security. And one way of augmenting the security of your website is by using security mechanisms, such as adding CSRF tokens in your forms and having all these security headers present. So we wanted to compare the presence of these security mechanisms in sealed websites to non-sealed websites. Actually equivalent non-sealed websites. And with equivalent, I mean websites of the same category. So an e-commerce website should be compared to another e-commerce website, and they should be of similar Alexa ranking, so either 10 ranks above or 10 ranks below. So as I said, we compared the presence of several security indicators, such as HTTP strict transport security, secure and HTTP only attribute on cookies, content security policy, XFrame options, and several others. And this is what we found. So here you can see the security mechanism, the percentage of its presence in sites with a security seal and sites without a security seal. And then we looked at for which security mechanisms there is a significant difference in its presence. And we found that only 3 of the mechanisms had a significant difference in its presence. And interestingly, it was twice in the favor of sites without a security seal. Now, we're not claiming that sites without a security seal are therefore significantly more secure, but at least this indicates that sites with a security seal are not trying to do their best effort in protecting their website, or at least not more than sites without a security seal. Okay, so we know that websites with a security seal don't significantly use these security mechanisms more than sites without a security seal, but still you can have a not vulnerable website without these security mechanisms. So that's why we did this next experiment, where we made the assumption that if a security scan was performed by the seal provider and they didn't find any vulnerabilities, we wouldn't be able to discover easily discoverable vulnerabilities. So in order to test this claim, we tried to contact 1,000 sealed websites. Unfortunately, only 9 of them agreed to let us do a free penetration test. We were even willing to sign a non-disclosure agreement, but still only 9 of them agreed, which already says something. And also a funny side note here. So in the process of contacting these sealed websites, we had this this placeholder text that we sent to everyone. But yeah, so this text contained a contraption. So instead of do not, it said don't. And the don't is with a single quote. So when we entered this text on a certain website, I guess you know what happened. We did try to notify the administrator of the website that it contained a very easily SQL injection, but unfortunately we didn't get any replies. Okay, so anyways, for the 9 of the 9 sealed websites that did agree to let us do a penetration test, we looked for several common vulnerabilities, such as SQL injection, cross-site scripting, having no CSRF token during 8 hours. So we limited ourselves to 8 hours to mimic the amount a modestly interested attacker would be willing to spend on checking the vulnerabilities in this website. So we found that the majority of these websites were vulnerable. So 7 out of the 9 websites were vulnerable. And of these 7, 6 were vulnerable to very easily discoverable vulnerabilities, such as a cross-site scripting where just a get parameter was reflected without any proper encoding. This textbook SQL injection, which is similar to the one with the contact form. So, well, this is pretty bad. And I should also mention that we try to aim for as large as possible distribution of the security seal providers. So I think for these 9 websites, we evaluated 6 or 7 different seal providers. Okay. Then, in a third experiment, we set up a vulnerable web shop in order to evaluate the accuracy of the security tools that are used by the seal providers. So this is quite important because if the accuracy is bad, then an attacker would be able to find vulnerabilities that weren't found by the seal providers. So we wanted to reflect a realistic website. So we set up an e-commerce website based on an open source e-commerce system named PrestaShop. We explicitly chose for an outdated version which contained cross-site scripting vulnerability. to this application, we added 12 different vulnerabilities, ranging from very basic things such as cross-site scripting, SQL injection, having sensitive files present, to a bit more advanced things such as issues with OAuth. And the results were, well, not that very surprising, but definitely not good. So as you can see, 2 of the seal providers didn't manage to find any vulnerability in our website, even though we included 12, some of which were very easily discoverable. But by looking at our server logs, it wasn't that surprising, because actually one of the seal providers here just did a port scan on our host, which is definitely not enough to prove the security of a certain website. The other one did a very basic Nessus scan, just checking for very basic things, but of course that wasn't sufficient either. But for the other seal providers, well, they didn't manage to find half of the vulnerabilities that we put there, so that's not that good either. But of course, you could argue that we made it very hard for them to find these vulnerabilities. So that's why we used some off-the-shelf tools to find the vulnerabilities that we put there. So we just used the very basic settings, and we ran a burp, HP Web Inspect, and a kinetic scan, and they managed to find at least as much vulnerabilities as the best performing seal provider. And one of them even outperformed them. So this means that if an attacker would just use one of these off-the-shelf tools, he would be able to discover vulnerabilities that were missed by the seal providers. So, yeah.
Last question. Were you logging their activities?
Yes.
Maybe that the seal providers immediately stop their scanning as soon as they found the first vulnerabilities and then say, okay, we don't have to go any.
Yeah. Well, we looked at, well, we kept all the logs and we looked at what their behavior was, and they just kept on scanning until they did the complete scan and then reported all the vulnerabilities.
Indicates when you find all findings is more than one finding, right? So
Yeah.
at least
That's
6 out of those. Yeah. 3.
yeah. That's 3.
And the others.
Yeah.
And did you also perform some intrusive testing on websites that didn't have seal?
No, we didn't. Okay, let's move on to the next part. So you could say, well, these seals, well, they don't really protect you, or they don't find every vulnerability that's there. But of course, it doesn't harm you, right? Well, actually, that's not entirely true. So we discovered that by having such a security seal on your website, you're actually exposing yourself to new types of attack vectors. I will just discuss 3 of them, but if you're interested in all of them, you should just look at the paper that we wrote about this. So we discovered that it was possible for attackers to use these security seals as an oracle in order to find vulnerable websites. Then in a second attack, we found that it's possible for the attacker to uniquely identify which vulnerability was discovered in this vulnerable website. And then the last attack shows that having such a security seal on your website may improve on phishing campaigns against your website. So in the first attack, the attacker wants to find vulnerable websites. This is interesting for an attacker because, well, he could just simply scan the whole internet for vulnerable websites. But if he already knows that a certain website is vulnerable, then he might put a bit more effort into scanning that certain website. So what the attacker here does is he collects a list of websites containing a security seal, which isn't that very hard to do. And next he checks for the visibility of these security seals. So on the first day, he sees that all security seals are visible. Then on the second day, he does the same scan and now notices that, so for website 3, the security seal now has disappeared. So this could mean two things. So either the contract between website 3 and the seal provider has ended, or website 3 is actually vulnerable. So this could give the attacker a trigger to start a vulnerability scan against website 3. And basically the attacker could keep on doing this, still the same result on day 3. But on day 4 he notices that the seal of website 3 has returned.
At which point do the providers usually remove the seal? Is that critical vulnerabilities or also at medium ones?
I think most of them remove it even when medium ones are found. So here on day 4 the seal has returned. So this means that website 3 was very likely to be vulnerable on day 2 and day 3, maybe even on day 1, depending on the grace periods offered by the seal provider. So basically the attacker could keep on scanning the visibility of these security seals, which is not a very hard job to do. We also did it ourselves and also managed to discover many vulnerable websites. So there's a vulnerability probably in website 4, then website 5, and so on. Okay. Now the attacker knows that a certain website is vulnerable, but he still needs to find the exact vulnerability. So in order to do so, he can set up a proxy.
I have a question. Did you click on the shields to see what they said before continuing to?
Yeah.
Yeah. In the previous slides, because in the day 1, can you go back? In day 1, did you click on each one of them to understand? Do you understand my question?
Yeah,
to understand the situation of the websites?
Yeah. So we also visited the website when clicking on the seal, and well, it basically says more or less the same as the visibility of the seal. So here it still said that that website 3 was without vulnerabilities, and here it said something that's the website 3 was without vulnerabilities on day 1. So they don't say that website 3 is actually vulnerable. They say, yeah, we last checked website 3 to be without vulnerabilities on day 1. Okay. Okay, so he set up this proxy and then instructs the security seal provider to scan his proxy. So it would be best for him to use the same security seal provider as his target, but of course that's not required. And many of these security seal providers offer this free trial, so it's not that difficult. So the security seal provider launches this vulnerability scanner, which is instructed to scan the proxy. The proxy will just forward all requests to the target, get responses back, and forward them to the vulnerability scanner. And this process goes on until the scan is complete. The vulnerability scanner reports it back to the seal provider, which will report it back to the attacker. And all that's left for the attacker to do is exploit vulnerabilities and earn some money. Okay. So the last attack that I'll cover today is an attack where the attacker tries to make a phishing campaign against a certain sealed website. Of course, it would be easy for him to just copy all the HTML code, including the seal image. But of course, the seal providers aren't that dumb, so they check the referrer header. And when the domain in the referrer header doesn't match the domain of the sealed websites, they don't show the image. Yeah, that prevents them from this very basic attack. But of course, it's possible to hide the referrer header, and when the referrer header isn't present, the seal providers will still show the security seal. And if we want to believe the studies of these seal providers, having a security seal on your website leads to an increased credibility of your website. So the seal providers are claiming that having a security seal on an e-commerce website will lead to 5 to 20% increase of sales. So visually, so you have your sealed website with the seal referring to the site of the seal provider. So as an attacker, you clone the sealed website. But as you can see, the security seal isn't there. So basically, the attacker adds this meta tag in HTML, and poof, the security seal starts showing. And the security seal also refers to the website of the trusted seal provider. So now when Alice comes along, she is referred to this phishing page, and she's wondering whether she should actually trust this phishing page. And okay, she looks at it and she sees that there's this security seal present. So she can even click on it, which will refer her to the website of the security seal provider. And this seal provider will say that, well, actually this domain is found to be without vulnerabilities. So Alice can basically just trust this seal provider, because probably she has heard of the name of the seal provider, and she sees that, well, this is a trusted web page, so she will also trust this party. And, well, she will enter her credentials and, again, earning the attacker some money. So, to conclude this presentation, so we first discovered that these security seals are often used on web shops, which is interesting because web shops often handle these credit card credentials and other sensitive things. So it's quite valuable for attackers. So in the second part, I have shown that having a security seal present on your website doesn't mean that much. So the sealed websites do not put additional effort in trying to protect their customers by using security mechanisms. Also, even websites with a security seal still contain vulnerabilities, which is mainly caused by the vulnerability scanners that are used by the seal providers that perform insufficiently. And in the last part of this presentation, I have shown various attacks against seal providers and the security seal ecosystem. So I would say that having a seal on your website makes you a valuable target for attackers. So,
Questions?
Thanks for the great talk. Liked it. Two questions, more or less related. When you finished the pen tests on the websites that gave you permission, did you report back there, of course, the results, and what was their reaction? Was it they stopped the contract with the web shop, with the seal provider?
Yeah, so some of them were quite surprised that we managed to find vulnerabilities. Others weren't that surprised because they know this was mainly a commercial product more than a security product. I don't think they actually contacted the seal providers, but I just think that they cancelled their subscription.
And of course, directly after they ask you, what would you recommend for us to do? Do we need some other seal provider, or what was your recommendation to them?
Well, using a seal provider is, well, by design, it's a flawed design actually. So yeah, just having this thing saying that your website is secure or not, it's some kind of side channel, and well, it could be used as an oracle for attackers. So using a seal provider, I would advise against it. Yeah, if you want to have this automated testing, you could still use these security products that test your website for vulnerabilities, but without putting a seal there.
So what were the three tools you used?
So Aconetics, Burp Suite, and HP Web Inspector.
You mentioned one of the scanners that you saw the traffic coming in. You said that was pretty basic. Did you look at any of the other traffic from the other seal providers to try and guess, well, what are they using? Are they using Burp? Are they using Aconetics against them? Or was it something homegrown?
I think most of them used homegrown security tools. Yeah, so one of the many flaws of automated security scanners is that they don't interpret the JavaScript, so they're not actual browsers. So I think there was only one or two where an actual browser environment was used, which was needed to discover, I think, one or two vulnerabilities.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for the talk and your research. I have just one remark about the results. I would expect that a C provider, which I'm not a fan of, would find like the same amount of vulnerabilities or the same vulnerabilities like Burp just ran like, okay, this is your domain, go for it. So I think for the visualization, your benchmark should be an automated scanner, not the vulnerabilities you put in there, because I think it's quite an illusion. You have a C provider scanning each night, getting better results than, for example, Aconetics and Burp and all those tools which are meant to be market leaders, right? So it's just, well, you're claiming like you have 50% results using Aconetics and stuff like that. So this might be a benchmark for C providers.
Well, it wasn't meant as a benchmark. It was just meant as a way of showing that well, the off-the-shelf tools perform at least as good as these seal providers. And so the reason for this is that these off-the-shelf tools often have false positives. And that's a big problem if you want to provide a security seal. Because if you find a false positive, then you expect them to fix it, but there's nothing to fix. So I think that's one of the reasons why they performed not as good as the security tools.
Okay. Thanks very much for this enlightening talk. I'm afraid it won't seal the fate of the seal providers. However, it is your time to give this guy a seal. And it's a seal of, hey, well done, or a seal of, you've wasted my time, or if you don't feel any like making any attestation, then simply walk out the door. Thank you for your attention.